Well, Gather Round was a raging success. There are storylines aplenty with 3 of the top 4 teams getting rolled. All that and more coming your way. This is Access All Areas thanks to Crypto.com.
Keys gets boot to ball. He beat May and now he watches with all of us as it slides through. Butters to seal it. Butters does it. Will he take his moment? He does. Welcome back, Jack.
Great to have your company. Damien Barrett and Matthew Lloyd are back from Adelaide. And Lloydie, happy birthday to you for yesterday.
Thanks, Nat. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
It was a cracking weekend of football over in South Australia, and all things Gather Round ended with a bang, with Collingwood and St Kilda going down to the wire, and it was the second half that the Pies did the damage. I'm keen to get both of your takes on this game. Lloydie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, we're just going to show off, see the 4-goal burst from Collingwood through this period, which won them the game. It was just an absolute arm wrestling. A lot of people wouldn't have liked the look of the game. It was very defensive, hard to score. It was a Ross Lyon-style game, but I'd be wrapped if I walked away for both of these clubs. They're going places. Collingwood, we saw what they did last year. They've gone on with it again. No ruckman. Lost last week, but adjusted really well in this game. And, Damo, I think if you can stop Collingwood's run, which St Kilda did for most of it and made it an arm wrestle, they've proven they can match it with anyone as well.
Yeah, they can. It's validation for what Ross Lyon's clearly doing, Lordo. But equally, to your point as well, with what Collingwood did, they had to grind this one out. It's not how they had been winning early in the season, the low score at half-time, and the finding a way, which they can do despite the adversity. I don't underestimate what they did yesterday with the lack of the big man, and also McStay going down within the game itself. And we'll get to another issue they're going to have in a few moments' time too, with Nathan Murphy expected to miss, or will miss, the next game as well.
And no Jordan De Goey, which made it even more impressive. I nearly changed my tip before the game, but I stuck that with that. I mean, the term flag pies got thrown around a fair bit last year, Damo. Were they a serious contender here?
Oh, yeah, I like it. In fact, I reckon the win on the weekend actually validates their performance as well, because they had to do it in an ugly fashion, didn't they? They weren't having that free-flowing game that has bamboozled so many clubs.
In my opinion is you just have to win enough games, and it's about just getting your players back at the right time. So Cox will come back, Darcy Cameron, we'll see McStay, we'll get De Goey, and the same for the Saints. They've got so many players that have to come back. So can you just keep ticking off the wins and be in better shape come August?
And they've got the extraordinarily specially talented Nick Dacos, who, Nat, may be able to do something that both Chris Judd and Gavin Wanganeen, they took 3 years to win a Brownlow. I reckon this guy's tracking to do it in his second year. I mean, I'd be staggered if he's not leading it by now, Lord. The 42 touches again yesterday, I think, is another 3-vote performance.
He's incredible. No second-year blues for Nick Dacos at all. There was a moment in the game that actually caught my eye, and you can see Jack Ginnivan here tackle Ben Patton. He's on the ground, and he said, "Oh, give me a hand up," and Ben just gives him nothing. I love this, Lloydie.
What we love about it is we showed one last week. Will Powell from the Gold Coast actually helped Jack Higgins up, and Higgins was just about to kick his 4th or 5th goal. And this says a lot about St Kilda. I don't reckon Ross Lyon would allow for a player to help an opposition player up. That just shows the mindset they're in, and maybe the mindset the Gold Coast are in currently with the way they're playing their footy.
Now, there's going to be an incident that will be looked at by the match review officer today, and it involves Anthony Caminiti and Nathan Murphy. And the Pies defender certainly was not happy with this treatment, Damo. What do you think this is going to get?
Well, he wasn't happy, but again, I defy anyone to look at what we saw last night and say that he wasn't the instigator. Now, that doesn't mitigate what's about to happen to Caminiti. And just to sign off on it, he was coming from the ground there. Murphy, Craig McRae spoke post-match, officially a concussion protocol around it. So he will miss the Anzac Day match. You can see what happened post-match, but we've seen enough from the match review office this year to know that, and again, we don't know what they're going to do officially as we speak this morning on this show, but that will go through the match review office, and it may well be required to even go through the tribunal. I mean, he finished the game of footy, Murphy, through a contact with Caminiti, as we speak this morning, that required him to be concussed. So there's a ramification to play for that, and I don't see Caminiti playing for at least 1, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll have the latest on that on afl.com.au and the AFL Live app as it comes to hand. Now, yesterday at Norwood Oval, it was the heroics of Harry Himmelberg that got the Giants over the line against the Hawks. The Giants missed several chances late, including Hogan from directly in front, and then Harry Himmelberg does this, Lloydie.
Oh, you could watch that mark on repeat over and over and over. How he gets the second launch. So he jumps on the shoulder of obviously James Sicily, the skipper, and then to go back and kick it.
Yeah.
The hardest part is your adrenaline is racing after you've taken a mark like that, and to go back and kick it, and then this to get back behind the ball.
Just gets a hand
and you saw
to
the
it.
pressure of Adam Kingsley. I know Sam Mitchell and Kingsley are both going to be short of wins this year, but you see the pressure on Adam Kingsley. That would do wonders for him as a young coach.
You can't underestimate what Himmelberg's done there, can you, in any of that aspect? And
no, just a big game performance late in the game to do what he did. A bit like Todd Marshall, who we'll get to later. To stand up late in the game like they did was enormous.
So the Cats have now got 2 wins in a row, albeit against West Coast, who are very injury depleted, and then Hawthorn the week before. But it looks like they're starting to return and get their confidence back. Tom Hawkins also looks like he's beginning to get rolling after an interrupted pre-season. But Damo, I think the real test is going to come for the Cats on Saturday night when they face the Swans, isn't it?
Yeah, that will be, Nat. And when you say they're getting their mojo back, yes, they are. But they're getting it back against Hawthorn last week and West Coast this week. I mean, what we're even just seeing here in an isolated selection of passages of play, it's training run sort of stuff, and it's going to be that case for any team or a lot of teams that play West Coast. So, I mean, the good thing is, though, Hawkins is getting his hands on the footy, he's kicking goals, and he may have got through that early start, that slow start to the season.
Yeah, I suggested maybe he should have a mini pre-season and let him just go away and train.
I was with you on that. But
but you wonder whether, again, doing it, he's played, that's maybe what he's done at AFL level for 4 weeks, and let's hope he can, he's done the hard yards and he's back to his best now.
Well, on Saturday night, there was a huge upset, not Saturday night, but Saturday during the day. It was a double header, and the Bombers stunned the D's. It was their biggest win in years, Lloydie. How did you see this one play out?
It was great. It was really good because, as I said, I've been to watch the Hawthorn wins, Gold Coast and also the Giants. I wasn't that impressed with their wins despite them winning, whereas this was just...
You actually said they were the worst 3-1 team you'd ever seen.
I said that off record, but anyway...
Now it's on the record.
It's on the record. I
thought you said it on air.
No, I didn't.
Sorry.
I didn't. No, it's all right. I'm happy to stand by that. I wasn't impressed with that at all. But this was... They put their big boy pants on this time around and they beat a big side, a powerful midfield, a defence, a forward line who buzzes around, and they beat them in every way. And war with Melbourne people flying home yesterday, Damo, from Adelaide, and they said, wow, they got us structurally, they got us tactically. And I spoke to an Essendon player who said, Brad Scott's not your mate. He's your coach who tells you, you must do this for us to win, play your role, do it and we'll get the job done. And they said he's exactly what this club needed, a bloke who's hard on us. We're all sort of second-guessing ourselves, oh, Brad Scott's coming along. And we haven't had someone with a good intimidation factor for a long, long time. Is what they've needed.
So is it like with what you saw with Ross Lyon, with that round 5 game, equally with Brad Scott, round 5 for Essendon? Obviously, he got the win, Ross didn't. But are you seeing pure validation now on those decisions and what they're bringing?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's interesting. Brad Scott's talked it down. OK, let's just keep it in there. So I just wonder whether after a win like that, he'll probably keep doing it. Yeah. Sometimes I think people push it. But Essendon's pushed away expectation for so long, I think hopefully they walk away and go, well, we've beaten arguably the best. If they're not the best, Collingwood are the best. So maybe the expectation should rise a bit at Essendon this year.
And it sets up an Anzac Day clash, which is going to be off the charts. I can't even remember the last time I looked forward to an Anzac Day clash this much. It's going to be incredible. But at this stage, when you think about Anzac Day, the skipper, Zach Merritt, is not looking like he's going to be there because he's been given a 1-match suspension, Damo, for this dangerous tackle. Will the Bombers appeal? I mean, should they? Well,
I imagine they would. I mean, it's what clubs do, and the system allows you to take it to a tribunal. But on what we've seen this year, Nat, he has to miss. I mean, that is the type of action they're trying to eliminate. If Tom Sparrow hadn't have had the type of head and the type of attitude he's got, he wouldn't have got up. And we've also learnt now this year, and rightly so, that even if a player does get up, it does not matter. The danger in the scope to damage is now factored in.
For the second straight week, Port Adelaide has been involved in a heart-stopper. I feel for their fans. They've probably been on the edge of their seats, a nervous wreck, but it was a stirring victory against the Western Bulldogs without their skipper, Tom Jonas. And, Lloydie, there were plenty of heroics when we looked through the final term.
I loved it, Nat, because when you get beaten by your crosstown rival in the way they did 2 weeks ago, it's embarrassing over there. You get smashed in a way like like you can't imagine, being a Victorian player like I was, where you've got 10 teams, like they just got hammered. And to bounce back the way they have,
Sydney last
week, coming back in that position at the SCG and then doing this 8 points down. And the way Butters stood up, we saw Jason Horne-Francis, Aliir was huge, Connor Rosie, Dixon going into the ruck. The boldness of subbing out Lysette was a sensational one.
I know it's a team effort, Lordo, and don't get me wrong when I say this, but there's individual heroes in what happened in that game when they got that 8-point deficit back onto their terms. I mean, what Marshall did and what this guy did too. Now, in the first half of that last quarter, he changed this game. He had an ordinary night, or a relatively ordinary night to that point. But I'd argue, Nat and Lottie, that of the 3 wins that Port have had, go back to round 1 against Brisbane Lions, where he was probably best on ground, the 2 matches they've won in the past 2 weeks, he's had big moments within those games, and I love this. And the rain coming down as Ken Hinkley's giving him his support, Nat. It's
beautiful.
It's iconic imagery out of to this point of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the players really see Ken as a bit of a father figure, but for a 19-year-old to be down on his game and have the know-how to bring it all back and stand up in that situation, it actually shows a lot of maturity, doesn't it?
Oh, it does, and that's been levelled against him, hasn't it? The immaturity attached to his time at North. And I will always maintain, Lloydie, that North is more to blame for what happened with Jason Horne-Francis at North than Jason Horne-Francis. But equally, we move on, and now we're dealing with a 19-year-old, doesn't turn 20 until June, who's under all this pressure. But I think he's standing up.
Yeah, she's used to say to us, you haven't made it till you've played 50 games. You haven't made it emotionally, and you don't know how to work through games. So for him to be average for 3 quarters and then to do what he did in the last quarter says a lot about his headspace at the moment.
Now, I want to go back to Friday night, and there was a lot made about the Tigers' outs and maybe not so much made about the Sydney Swans because they had several stars missing. In fact, they were the youngest team, Damo, in the competition this round. And if we take a look here, 15 of the 23 were 24 years or under. That surprised me.
It's actually extraordinary, Nat, and this is a team that made the grand final last year. Now, it got belted in that grand final, but to make it with that type of age on their list, and to know that they went into the game without Rampy, without Tom McCartan, without Paddy McCartan, without Buddy Franklin, to lose a Marty within the game. Now, I know they were playing an opponent that had its own issues with injury, but that's extraordinary to get through your 3 key backs and then to lose another key position player within the game itself.
Yeah, they might have been ahead of their time last year with making that grand final. But, they're slightly off at the moment, but it was a brave win on Saturday night.
On Friday, the Gold Coast Suns were in a winning position again, and once again, they let it slip. The Dockers were able to run over the top, and last year, Damo, they extended Stuart Dew's contract by 2 years in July. Since then, they've lost 10 out of 14 games.
Yeah, and only one to this point of this season. That was against Geelong, but the games before it and the 2 since have been pretty ordinary. They had done enough to win that game against the Dockers at Norwood Oval on Friday and then let it slip. And I now do worry about Stuart Dew's time. I'm not one to call for sackings, and he's still got another 18 months of a contract. But Lordy, the next 4 games are really crucial to him. North Melbourne, Richmond, Melbourne, West Coast. He's managed only the 30 wins out of the 110 he's played. They kept telling us off-season this was time, and it's just not working. And we've already spoken about the 2 clubs that have made brave decisions in that space, that have transformed seasons already this year. And I can only imagine the AFL, which still does effectively run Gold Coast Suns, taking a pretty close look at this next month of footy.
And I'm looking at Ken Hinkley and saying, well, if Port don't want him, I reckon walking into that team at the Gold Coast Suns, I think he would be pretty great for that football club. So that's the other pressure on Stewie Dew. If he can't show something in the next 4 to 6 weeks, they must be asking themselves, OK, about some other viable candidates that aren't coaching, like a Nathan Buckley or a Ken Hinkley, who's currently may not coach Port next year.
So taking a closer look at what's happening on field, Lloydie, there's probably a number of different issues that are going on, but we're going to highlight one in particular, and that's the midfielders that are attending their centre bounces. Just from your perspective, these really high numbers?
Oh, they're huge. So I think you need... Like even Dane Swan changed the game in the way he used to play hard for 5 or 6 minutes and charge off the ground. Back on, charge off the ground. And you've got Matty Rowell, Took Miller and Noah Anderson giving...
So just for the layman, Lordy, what is it you're highlighting?
So we're highlighting that 3 players are doing 80% of the centre bounce work and have done 332 centre bounces, and there's 88 for others, so 20% for the other,
so there's no one else.
19 players. So and then the stat is that they're minus 94 points after half-time as a team. And we saw what Fremantle did to them. They just steamrolled them. So, Stewie, that's a coaching issue. He might say, I haven't got the players, but you've got to develop them because they're being steamrolled and overrun because of the reliance on two.
And they play well every week, don't they, those guys?
Do.
Witts, who's missed the past fortnight, and that always plays well as well. Swallow still battles. Lukosius, I think, is having a pretty good season, relatively speaking. Their good players play well, but it doesn't get them the wins.
Yeah, and you'd want to play well. If you're in there, you'd want to be getting 30 touches every week
because
if you're attending so many centre bounces.
And they could do with a Will Brodie, Nat, couldn't they, in that context, who they offloaded to Fremantle, who actually helped the Dockers win the game, mate.
Yeah, well, he came on as the sub and had 16 touches and was very impactful straight away. So he was someone that they're certainly missing. But in the Adelaide Hills on Saturday as well, it was the Lions who feasted on the Roos. And Lloydie, you would have loved being a forward here playing against North's defensive structure. They had 33 marks inside 50 of the line.
Yeah, there are days where Joey and Eric probably undersold them. So there are days you say, I'm looking for 8 or 9 today. They got 9 between them, but this is embarrassing. You look at the North players who are just in no man's land. There's 3 of them just guarding that grass. So that's relying on pressure up the field. Alistair Clarkson will probably defend his defensive system. But he has
But you can't defend it on this, Lauder.
No, well, he'll have a go at his midfield.
Look at this. This kick goes in badly, and they've still got time for it to bounce twice, and to then have multiple options inside.
But this is relying on pressure up the field. So forward line pressure, midfield pressure to not fall out for this. But you've got North players standing there expecting there's going to be pressure up the field. If there's not, you're just embarrassed as a defensive player.
How many would you have kicked if you were playing for the Lions on the weekend at the peak of your
I think I'd run out of fingers, Dave.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Let's quickly rewind to Thursday night now. And the opening game of Gather Round, the Crows, or the Crom, as they're now being known as. They're so impressive, Damo, against the Blues. And their midfielders did a beautiful job delivering it forward, basically on a silver platter. And Jordan Dawson, incredible kick.
Just to watch him live, as I was fortunate enough to be able to do as part of Gather Round, Nat, on this particular match, he's got genuine presence out there, hasn't he, Lordo? Yeah. And the leadership component to him, which may have snuck up on all of us outside that system, is apparent when you see him play.
So we want to just show the difference between the two clubs. So the ball was going into 1v1s, but on the Adelaide, you don't know, is it Rochelle, Rankin, Walker, Fogarty, where's the ball going to, versus Curnow and Mackay. It's just blasting the ball in. Look how predictable. Look at all the Crows getting there, 4v1. So Michael Voss, all eyes are on Michael Voss going into this game v St Kilda this week, because Rossi Lyon will look to do a number on them as well. So if he's as predictable and just blasting the ball in, not using it well, moving the ball slow, I know they're in a good ladder position, Carlton, but big question marks on how they're tracking as a team. And I think that's because of this. It's just slow ball movement and just...
Have you got a solution, like an instant one for them?
Well, I think it's a type of players that they have around. I think they've got to be bolder. I think every team who's going well is moving the ball quicker, and Carlton are moving the ball too slow. And you've got Durden and these types. They're good triers, but they probably lack that good number 3 outside of Curnow and Mackay.
And just back on the Crows, keep an eye out for Access All Areas Extra. I've got a feature coming this week. I sat down with Rory Sloane and had a bit of chat about his future and obviously the excitement around the Crows. So make sure you watch for that one to drop on afl.com.au and the AFL Live app this week. Now, don't forget to put your tips in for the AFL's official tipping competition with thanks to crypto.com. I want to get some bold early tips from the two of you. So, Lloydie, we'll start with you. Carlton and the Saints.
Saints for me.
Yeah, I'm giving the Blues one more chance, but I will concede I'm totally wrong on them if they lose this one.
OK, Cat Swans, Lloydie?
I think the Cats will win at home in Geelong.
I like the Swans.
And
up
then
and about.
Anzac Day, Damo.
I'm going to stick with the Pies in that one, Nat.
And Bombers, obviously, for you.
No Zach Barrett on the
Oh, OK. All righto. Time now, though, for our Crypto Brave play.
Now, I'm going to jump in here, Nat. I've never seen anything like this. Lordy, we've been instructed to make Nat the Brave Player of the Week. She asked us to, and she'd rather we didn't say this, but she apparently exposed herself to genuine fear on the roof while she's in a harness on this gather round.
I'm petrified by heights, and I didn't see either one of you up on the Adelaide roof. Would you have done that? Would you have leant back like that?
I did the same thing at Perth's Optus Stadium, and I didn't lean back, Nat. So
OK, so you're having a go at me. That's a spot for Riley and I who did it during the week. It was lots and lots of fun over in Adelaide.
Have you got a real Crypto Brave play?
I do have a serious one, and this is more a bold play, but it's got to go to Lockie Schultz because this moment here, you can see he is so tough. He gets tackled in a moment, you can see it here, and he manages to stand up and still dish it off somehow, and the Dockers score a goal. So I reckon that's pretty bold, isn't it?
And look at the scoreline too. They're down by 11 points at that point when he's having a great year, Lachie Schultz. When a lot of his teammates haven't. So from Williamstown, he's had to do it the hard way, Lachie Schultz, and he's having a great season.
It's genuine strength, just to get through that moment.
Yeah, brute strength. We absolutely love it from Lachie Schultz. And that is all we have time for today on Access All Areas. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week.